He lost his job for being late while helping a woman on the street. But when he finds out, Marcus Thompson wiped his greasy hands on the yellow rag while looking at the workshop's wall clock. It was already 8:15 in the morning, and he knew the new owner would arrive in exactly 15 minutes for the most important meeting of his career. 15 years working in the same place, and now everything depended on this conversation. That's when he heard the sound of an engine sputtering on the street. Through the foggy window, he saw a woman in a blue dress standing next to a car with its hood raised. She was looking desperately in all directions, clearly lost and frightened. Marcus recognized that look of despair. He had seen it many times before. "Can I help?" he asked, approaching slowly so as not to startle her. The woman turned around, and he could see she was about 30 years old, with curly hair tied in a messy bun and tears in her eyes. "My car just stopped," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to get to the hospital. My mother is hospitalized, and the doctors said that it might be today." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He looked at the clock again, and then at the woman. 15 years of honest work weighed against the urgent need of someone in trouble. "Let me take a look," he said, already knowing he was making the worst possible decision for his career. "No, you don't have to," she insisted, noticing his hesitation. "You must be busy. I'll call a tow truck." "How old is your mother?" 72. Marcus thought of his own mother, who had passed away at 71, and how he hadn't made it to the hospital in time. He never forgave himself for that. "I'll fix this quickly," he said, already with tools in hand. The problem was more complex than he imagined. The fuel pump had burned out, and some parts needed to be replaced. Marcus worked like he never had before, his hands flying over the parts while sweat streamed down his face. "Please go to your appointment," the woman begged every 10 minutes. "I'll manage." "I'm almost done," Marcus lied, knowing he still needed at least another hour. It was 11:15 when Marcus finally started the car's engine. The smooth purr indicated the work had been perfect. The woman cried with relief and tried to give him money. "I won't accept it," said Marcus, wiping his hands. "Just get to the hospital quickly." "How can I thank you?" "By getting there on time. That's all that matters." She got in the car and drove off quickly, leaving Marcus alone on the street. He looked at his dirty clothes, at his grease-stained hands, and walked slowly back to the workshop. His belongings were already in a cardboard box on the workbench. His boss, Gerald Patterson, a 50-year-old man with a permanently sour expression, stood with his arms crossed by the desk. 3 hours, Marcus," said Gerald, shaking his head. 3 hours late for the most important meeting of your life." "I can explain." "No need. Mr. Howard has already left. He said he doesn't do business with irresponsible people." Marcus felt his world collapse. Howard Bennett was the new owner of the workshop, a businessman known for modernizing old businesses. The meeting was to decide who would stay on as general manager under the new management. "Gerald, please, you've known me for 15 years. "I do. And I know you've always been very proper, Marcus. That's why I don't understand what got into you today. But I can't keep you here anymore." Mr. Howard was clear. Anyone who doesn't show up on time for an important meeting isn't fit to lead a team. Marcus picked up the box without saying another word. Inside were his personal tools, some family photos, and a mug his wife Jennifer had given him on their 10th wedding anniversary. "Marcus," Gerald called out as he was already at the door. "Do you want to tell me what really happened?" For a moment, Marcus thought about explaining about the woman, about his mother in the hospital, about the choice he had to make. But he knew Gerald wouldn't understand. To him, work was work, and feelings didn't pay the bills. "It doesn't matter anymore," said Marcus, and left the workshop for the last time. The way home had never seemed so long. Marcus drove his 2010 Ford Focus slowly, thinking about how he would tell Jennifer that he had lost his job. She was 6 months pregnant, and they had planned to use the salary increase from the promotion to finish paying for the apartment. Jennifer was in the kitchen preparing lunch when he arrived. She was a 28-year-old woman, a public school teacher, with a smile that always managed to calm Marcus in the toughest moments. Today, that smile vanished as soon as she saw his expression. "What happened?" she asked, dropping the spoon on the stove. Marcus told her everything, from the woman on the street to the conversation with Gerald. Jennifer listened in silence, one hand resting on her round belly, the other covering her mouth. "You did the right thing," she said finally, but Marcus could see the worry in her eyes. "The right thing doesn't pay the bills, Jennifer. We'll figure it out. We always do." But Marcus knew the numbers by heart. Jennifer's teacher salary covered little more than her food and medicine. Without his salary, they wouldn't be able to pay the rent, the car loan, and the furniture installments. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The following week, Marcus left early every morning looking for a job. He visited all the workshops in the city of Riverside, where they had lived for 8 years. The answer was always the same: they weren't hiring. On Thursday, at Robert Wilson's workshop in the city centre, Marcus discovered the real reason no one wanted to hire him. "Look, Marcus," said Robert, a 60-year-old man who had known Marcus since he was an apprentice. "I'd hire you in a heartbeat, you know that. But I got a call from Gerald." "What did he say?" Robert hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "That you had disappeared from work for 3 days straight. That you showed up drunk, that you argued with customers, said he wouldn't recommend you to anyone." Marcus felt his blood boil. Gerald was deliberately sabotaging his chances of getting work. But why? What did he gain from it? "Robert, you know me. Have you ever seen me drunk?" "Of course not, Marcus. But you understand my position. I can't risk my reputation." Marcus left Robert's workshop feeling humiliated and outraged. Gerald had turned a simple delay into a smear campaign. Now all the doors in the city were closed to him. At home, Jennifer tried to keep her spirits up, but Marcus noticed how she was controlling expenses. She stopped buying the fruits she liked so much, switched to a cheaper shampoo brand, and started cooking smaller portions. "Jennifer, you need to eat well because of the baby." "I am eating well," she lied, chewing slowly on the small piece of chicken from lunch. At the end of the second week of unemployment, Marcus had to sell his Focus. The money would pay for 3 months of rent, but after that he didn't know what to do. Watching his car being taken away by the buyer was like watching a piece of his dignity leave. Without a car, Marcus started delivering food by bicycle for an app. The money was little, barely enough for the day's food, but it was better than nothing. The streets of Riverside, which he had known as a respected mechanic, now saw him as just another delivery person struggling to survive. It was during one of these deliveries, on a Tuesday afternoon, that Marcus saw Gerald coming out of an auto parts store. His former boss was accompanied by a young man about 25 years old, whom Marcus didn't recognize. "Don't worry, Uncle Gerald," he heard the young man say. "With Marcus out of the way, I'll show I can manage everything." Marcus stopped his bicycle behind a pole and kept listening. "You did the job right, Gerald. That fool never imagined that the whole story about an important meeting was just to get him fired. Mr. Howard doesn't even exist." Marcus felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. It had all been a setup. Gerald had invented the story about the meeting just to have an excuse to fire him. But why? "Brandon, you're my nephew and I love you," said Gerald. "But I needed to get Marcus out of the way. He was too popular with the customers, too competent. He would never accept you as the boss." And it worked perfectly. Now the shop is ours. Marcus pedaled home with his mind racing. Gerald had destroyed his life to favor his own nephew. The whole story about being irresponsible, showing up drunk, fighting with customers, all were lies spread to prevent him from getting another job. At home, Jennifer was lying on the couch, feeling sick. The doctor had said it was normal in the 6th month, but Marcus knew that stress and poor nutrition were worsening her condition. "Jen, I need to tell you something." He recounted what he had discovered about Gerald and Brandon. Jennifer listened in silence, her anger growing with every word. "Let's sue him," she said, trying to sit up. "With what money? And against whose word? Who will believe an unemployed man against an established shop owner?" Jennifer began to cry, not from sadness, but from outrage. 28 years old, a dedicated teacher, pregnant and watching her husband be destroyed by envy and greed. "It's not fair, Marcus. You've always been honest, hard-working, helped so many people." "Maybe I helped too many people," said Marcus, bitter. "If I hadn't stopped to help that woman—" "Don't say that, you did what was right." But Marcus was no longer sure what was right. His kindness had cost him his job, his family's stability, and the future of his unborn child. The next morning, Marcus was getting ready for another day of deliveries when someone knocked on the door. It was an elegant woman, about 35 years old, wearing a navy blue business suit. It took Marcus a few seconds to recognize her. "You," he said, surprised. It was the woman from the broken-down car. "My name is Rebecca Harris," she said, extending her hand. "May I come in? I need to speak with you." Marcus glanced at the humble living room, the simple furniture, Jennifer on the couch in her house clothes. He felt ashamed of his current situation, so different from the confident mechanic she had met. "Of course, come in." Rebecca politely sat in the old armchair and looked directly at Marcus. "I heard you lost your job." "How do you know that?" "I went to the shop looking for you last week. I wanted to thank you in person and pay for the repair. Gerald told me you had been fired for irresponsibility." Marcus felt his face flush with anger and shame. "What else did he say?" "Many things. That you drank, that you fought with customers, that you disappeared from work. But something didn't add up." "Why?" Rebecca smiled for the first time since she arrived. "Because I saw who you really are that day. I saw a man who missed an important appointment to help a stranger. I saw someone who worked 3 hours for free and refused payment. I saw a good man." Marcus didn't know what to say. Jennifer approached, curious about the conversation. "My wife, Jennifer," Marcus introduced. "It's a pleasure," said Rebecca, standing up to greet Jennifer. "Your husband saved my life that day." "I just fixed a car," said Marcus, embarrassed. "You did more than that. You allowed me to get to the hospital in time to say goodbye to my mother. She passed away 2 hours after I arrived there." Silence filled the room. Marcus finally understood why that woman had been so desperate, why she was crying so much. "I'm so sorry," said Jennifer, touching Rebecca's arm. "Thank you. But I came here for another reason." "Marcus, do you know Harris Dealership?" Marcus knew, of course. It was the largest imported car dealership in the region, with branches in 3 cities. Every mechanic dreamed of working there. "It's my company," said Rebecca simply. Marcus and Jennifer exchanged looks, shocked. The woman Marcus had helped was one of the most important businesswomen in the region. "I want to offer you a job," continued Rebecca, "head of maintenance at the main workshop." Marcus felt as if he were dreaming. After weeks of searching for any work as a mechanic, he was being offered one of the best positions in the city. "I don't understand," he stammered. "It's simple. I need someone I can trust completely. Someone competent, honest, who puts people first. You've proven you're that person." "But you barely know me." Rebecca laughed, a musical sound that contrasted with the seriousness of the conversation. "Marcus, do you think I offer jobs to anyone who helps me on the street?" "No, but let me tell you something. Over the past 5 years, I've gone through 7 different mechanics at the main workshop. All technically competent, all recommended, all with excellent references." She paused, as if remembering bad experiences. "Do you know what happened to all of them? They started charging customers for unnecessary services, using counterfeit parts to make more profit, treating employees poorly. All of them put money ahead of honesty." Marcus began to understand where she was going with this. "When you refused my money that day, I knew I had found someone different. Someone who does the right thing even when no one is watching, even when it hurts him." "Rebecca," interrupted Jennifer, "can I ask a direct question?" "Of course." "Marcus lost his job because he was helping you. How do we know you won't do the same thing to him?" Rebecca smiled, clearly approving of Jennifer's protectiveness toward her husband. "Because I'm not Gerald Patterson. Because I value employees who have a moral conscience, and because I know how to recognize character when I see it." Marcus still hesitated. It seemed too good to be true. "What would my salary be?" $4,500 to start, plus meal vouchers, full health insurance for you and your family, and profit sharing." Jennifer choked. It was almost 3 times what Marcus earned at Gerald's workshop. "Is there a catch?" asked Marcus, still suspicious. "Just one. You'll have to work with a team that doesn't know you. You'll need to prove your worth from day one, and I'll be watching you closely for the first few months." "That's fair. So, do you accept?" Marcus looked at Jennifer, who had tears in her eyes. He looked at the humble living room where they had endured the worst weeks of their lives. He thought of all the times he had helped people on the street, all the times Jennifer had said he was too good for his own good. "I accept." Rebecca stood up and extended her hand. "Welcome to Harris Dealership. You start on Monday." After Rebecca left, Marcus and Jennifer sat on the couch, still processing what had happened. "Can you believe this?" asked Jennifer. "I'm trying to. It feels like someone up there decided we've suffered enough, or maybe your good deeds finally came back to you." Marcus hugged his wife, feeling for the first time in weeks that maybe everything would work out. On Saturday, 2 days before starting his new job, Marcus decided to stop by Gerald's shop to pick up some tools he had forgotten. He also wanted to confront his former boss about the lies he had spread. The shop was closed, but Marcus knew Gerald often worked on Saturdays. He went around the building and entered through the back. Voices were coming from the office. "You have to stop spreading these stories about Marcus," said a voice Marcus didn't recognize. "Why would I stop?" replied Gerald. "He can't get a job anywhere in the city. That's exactly what I wanted. Because someone might find out you lied, and then it's your reputation that will be destroyed." Marcus approached the half-open door and peeked in. Gerald was talking to an older man, about 60 years old, who was wearing expensive clothes. "Howard, you're worrying too much. Who's going to believe an unemployed man over me?" Marcus froze. Howard. The same Howard from the supposed important meeting. So he really existed. "Gerald, you didn't hear me. I got a call from Harris Dealership yesterday. They were checking Marcus's references for a head of maintenance position." Gerald's face paled. "That's impossible. Rebecca Harris would never hire someone with the reputation I created for Marcus." "Well, that's exactly what she did. And when she learned about the things you said about him, she became very interested in knowing if they were true." "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That Marcus is one of the best mechanics I've ever known. That you fired him out of jealousy and envy. That all the stories you made up are lies." Gerald stood up abruptly, knocking over the chair. "You did what?" "Gerald, we've been friends for 20 years, but I won't go along with this. What you did to Marcus was disgusting." "Howard, you don't understand. That guy was stealing my position. The customers liked him more than me, my own business, and everyone preferred to talk to him. Because he's competent and honest. Things you should value in an employee." "And what about Brandon? He's my nephew. He needed a chance." "Then you should have given him that chance without destroying someone else's life." Marcus had heard enough. He pushed the door open and entered the office. Gerald and Howard turned around, shocked. "Marcus," stammered Gerald, "what are you doing here?" "I came to get my tools, and I ended up discovering some interesting things." Howard stood up and extended his hand. "Marcus, my name is Howard Bennett. I'm very sorry for what happened." "So you really do exist," said Marcus, shaking the man's hand. "Yes, I do. And I feel responsible for this whole situation." "How so?" "It was my idea to have that meeting to choose a general manager. Gerald convinced me that you were irresponsible, and that it wasn't worth waiting for you. I believed him." Marcus looked at Gerald, who was red with shame and anger. "Why, Gerald? Why did you do this to me?" Gerald took a long time to answer, as if struggling internally. "Because I was afraid of you," he said finally. "Afraid of me?" "Afraid that the customers would find out you were better than me, that you knew more, that you were more honest. 15 years working with me, and everyone liked you more." The confession came out as if Gerald were lifting a weight off his shoulders. "When Brandon graduated as a mechanic, I saw a chance to put someone from the family in charge, someone who would never overshadow me. And you destroyed my life for that. I didn't think it would be so hard for you to get another job. Gerald, you spread lies about me all over the city." "I know, and I regret it." Howard shook his head, disappointed. Gerald, you need to fix this. Call all the auto shop owners in town and undo the lies. Howard is right, said Marcus. You will call every person who received your lies and tell the truth. Gerald nodded, defeated. I'll do that. Marcus, can you forgive me? Marcus thought about the weeks of despair, the humiliation, Jennifer's suffering. He also thought about his new chance at the dealership, the life change that was about to happen. Gerald, forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, but I'll try to leave this anger behind. And what about Brandon? Asked Howard. He knew everything. Brandon is young and impressionable, said Marcus, surprising himself with his generosity. Maybe he'll learn from this. Howard smiled for the first time since Marcus had entered the office. Marcus, now I understand why Rebecca hired you. You have something rare these days. Wisdom. Marcus left the shop carrying his tools and a sense of closure. The confrontation with Gerald hadn't brought the satisfaction of revenge he had expected, but something better. The peace of knowing that the truth had prevailed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Monday came quickly. Marcus got up at 5 in the morning, took a thorough shower, put on his best formal clothes, and kissed Jennifer on the forehead while she was still asleep. Everything will work out, she murmured without opening her eyes. It will, replied Marcus, more confident than he felt. The Harris dealership was in a modern building in downtown Riverside, with a glass facade that reflected the morning sun. Marcus had never been inside, only admired it from afar. Now he was about to work there. Rebecca greeted him in the reception area promptly at 8 o'clock. Ready to meet your new team? Nervous, but ready. The dealership's shop was 3 times larger than Gerald's shop, with modern equipment that Marcus had only seen in specialized magazines. 10 mechanics were working on imported luxury cars. Everyone, called Rebecca, clapping her hands. Come meet the new maintenance chief. The mechanics stopped what they were doing and gathered around. Marcus could feel curious looks and some clearly hostile ones. This is Marcus Thompson, introduced Rebecca. He has 15 years of experience and will lead the team starting today. A mechanic around 40 years old, tall and strong, stepped forward. I'm David Martinez, the current supervisor. I've worked here for 8 years. David's tone wasn't exactly hostile, but Marcus could tell the man wasn't happy about being demoted. It's a pleasure, David. I hope we can work well together. We'll see, said David, returning to his work. Rebecca showed Marcus his new office, a room overlooking the shop with a desk full of papers. David was expecting that promotion, she explained when they were alone. He's competent, but he's missing something. What? The same thing the others were missing. He only thinks about profit. Last week, he tried to convince a 70-year-old woman to replace her entire car engine when the problem was just a hose. Marcus understood the dilemma. David had experience and technical knowledge, but he didn't have the honesty that Rebecca valued. How do you want me to handle this? With patience and firmness. Show that competence and honesty can go hand in hand. The first few days were tense. David questioned every decision Marcus made, especially when he refused to approve unnecessary services. The other mechanics were caught in the middle of the conflict, unsure which side to take. Marcus, said David on Wednesday after Marcus cancelled an inflated estimate, you're being too soft with the customers. I'm being honest. Honesty doesn't get you a raise. David, do you want to increase your salary by selling lies to people who trust us? I want to pay my household bills. Marcus understood David's frustration. He also had bills to pay, but he knew there were honest ways to make money. Let's try something different, Marcus proposed. How about we focus on doing such good work that customers always come back and recommend our services? That takes too long to show results. It takes time, but it's sustainable, and it builds real trust. David didn't seem convinced, but agreed to try. On Friday of the first week, Marcus faced his first big test. A customer brought in a BMW with air conditioning problems. David had given an estimate of $3,000, including replacing the compressor, condenser, and electrical system. Marcus inspected the car personally and found the problem was just a blown fuse. Solution, $10 and 5 minutes of work. You're going to tell Rebecca, said David nervously. "I won't. But you're going to redo this estimate honestly." David hesitated, clearly reluctant. "Marcus, that customer has money. He can easily afford $3,000. Being able to pay doesn't mean we should charge it. That would be theft. Every shop in town would do the same thing." "We're not every shop in town." David redid the estimate, visibly upset. When the customer returned and found the repair had cost only $10, his reaction surprised everyone. "Are you sure?" he asked, suspicious. "Another place said it would cost over $2,000. "We're sure," said Marcus. The problem was simple. The customer was so impressed that he came back the following week with 2 friends who also needed repairs. Within 2 weeks the story spread, and the shop started getting referred customers. David watched the growing activity with a mix of surprise and admiration. "How did you know it would work?" he asked one day. "Experience," said Marcus. "My mother always said honesty takes time to bear fruit, but when it does, it feeds the whole family." Little by little, the team began to understand Marcus's work philosophy. It wasn't about making less money, but about earning it ethically and sustainably. Jennifer visited the shop at the end of the 2nd month, her belly quite rounded by then. The mechanics treated her with affection, asking about the baby, offering chairs for her to sit. "They like you," she commented when they went to lunch together. "It took time, but we're building a good environment." "And Rebecca, how is she reacting?" "Well, I think. She stops by the shop every week, talks to customers, observes how we work." "Are you worried about something?" Marcus hesitated. There was something bothering him, but he couldn't quite define what. "Sometimes I get the impression she's testing something specific, like she's waiting to see if I do something in particular." "What kind of thing?" "I don't know. I just feel there's something she hasn't told me about why she hired me." Jennifer touched his hand. "Marcus, maybe you're overthinking it. You're a good employee, honest, competent. What more could she want?" But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that Rebecca had a deeper reason for hiring him, something beyond gratitude for fixing her car. The answer came unexpectedly on the 1st Monday of December. Marcus arrived at work and found Rebecca talking with David in the shop's yard. The conversation seemed serious, and David was gesturing nervously. "Good morning," Marcus greeted, approaching. "Marcus," said Rebecca, "David was telling me about a problem you had last week." Marcus looked at David, trying to understand what it was about. "What problem?" "That customer who came with the Mercedes," said David, clearly uncomfortable. "Mr. Antonello." Marcus remembered. Antonello had brought his Mercedes in for a routine checkup. During the inspection, Marcus discovered the brakes were dangerously worn and needed immediate replacement. "Oh yes, his brakes were in terrible shape. I replaced them right away, didn't even charge an emergency fee." "Didn't you think it was strange for the brakes to be like that?" asked Rebecca. "Strange how?" "The car had only 15,000 kilometers on it." Marcus stopped to think. It really was unusual for brakes to wear out so much with such low mileage. "Do you suspect something specific?" he asked. Rebecca exchanged a meaningful look with David. "Marcus, can you examine this report?" she said, handing over a folder. Marcus opened the folder and found technical reports for 3 Mercedes cars that had been through the shop in the last 2 months. All had similar problems: premature brake wear, pads replaced ahead of schedule. "Where did these cars come from?" "All from the same dealership," said Rebecca. "Montenegro Imports." Marcus knew Montenegro. It was Harris's main competitor in the area, specializing in the same types of imported vehicles. "Do you think someone is sabotaging the cars before selling them?" "It's a possibility, but I need someone who understands mechanics to investigate this with me." Marcus began to understand why Rebecca was so interested in his opinion. "Rebecca, this isn't something we can handle on our own. If there really is sabotage, we need the proper authorities." "I know. But first we need to be sure, and I need someone I trust completely to help me understand what's going on." "And you trust me for that?" Rebecca smiled, but Marcus could see worry in her eyes. "Marcus, remember when we met? You stopped your life to help a stranger, even knowing it would cause you trouble. I remember. At that moment, I decided if I ever needed someone completely trustworthy, it would be you. Marcus looked at the reports again. If his suspicions were correct, he was facing a criminal scheme that could put lives at risk. What do you want me to do? I want you to carefully analyze all these cases. Look for patterns, similarities, anything that can give us more certainty about what's happening. And if we confirm there's sabotage, then we go to the authorities with solid evidence. Marcus spent the rest of the morning examining the reports. The patterns were clear. All the cars had been sold by Montenegro in recent weeks. All developed brake problems within a few days of purchase, and all the issues were the type that could cause serious accidents. David, Marcus called after lunch, do you know anyone who works at Montenegro? Yes, I do. My brother-in-law, Andrew, has worked there as a mechanic for 3 years. Do you get along? Reasonably. Why? Marcus hesitated. He didn't want to involve David in a potentially dangerous situation, but he needed more information. Do you think you could talk to him? Ask how things are going there, if he's noticed anything strange. I can try, but he's a bit closed off about these things. Just try to find out if he's noticed any changes in their shop recently. New procedures, new employees, anything out of the ordinary. David agreed, intrigued by the mystery. The next morning, David arrived visibly agitated. Marcus, I need to talk to you in private. They went to Marcus's office and closed the door. I spoke with Andrew last night, David began. He said some strange things. What kind of things? There's a new guy there, a guy named Bruno, who works alone on some specific cars. Always cars that are going to be sold to important clients. Important how? People known in the city, business people, folks who can give the dealership good or bad publicity. Marcus felt a chill in his stomach. The puzzle piece was falling into place. Did Andrew say anything else? He said this Bruno takes direct orders from the owner of Montenegro. No one can touch the cars he's preparing. Preparing for what? That's the strange part. Andrew said Bruno does some kind of special adjustment on these cars, but when Andrew asked what it was, they told him to mind his own business. Marcus and David exchanged looks, both reaching the same terrible conclusion. David, do you think that they're sabotaging the cars on purpose? It's the only explanation that makes sense. Marcus picked up the phone to call Rebecca, but hesitated. He needed more evidence before making such a serious accusation. David, do you trust your brother-in-law? I do. Why? Do you think he'd agree to help us find out the truth? Depends on what you're thinking. Marcus explained his plan. It was risky, but it was the only way to get concrete evidence of what was happening at Montenegro. Marcus, this is dangerous, said David after hearing everything. If they find out we're investigating, I know, but we can't let them keep selling sabotaged cars. Someone could get seriously hurt. David was thoughtful for a few minutes. All right, I'll talk to Andrew, but if he says no, we stop here. Agreed. The conversation with Andrew happened that same night, at a discreet bar on the other side of the city. David brought Marcus, introducing him as a mechanic friend who was concerned about strange problems they'd seen in Montenegro cars. Andrew was a man of about 30, thin and nervous, who looked around as if he expected to be followed. I don't know if I should be talking about this, he said after David explained the situation. Andrew, said Marcus, if our suspicion is right, lives are at risk. You can help save people. Do you really think they're sabotaging the cars? That's what we want to find out. But we need your help. Andrew took a big gulp of beer before answering. There's something very wrong going on there, this Bruno. He scares the other mechanics, always works alone, never talks to anyone, and the boss protects him like he's gold. What did you see him doing? I didn't see it directly, but once I forgot my wrench near his bay. When I went back to get it, I saw him messing with the brakes of a brand new Audi. Messing how? It looked like he was loosening something, but when he saw me, he yelled at me to get out of there. Marcus and David exchanged looks. It was the confirmation they needed. Andrew, would you agree to help us catch this Bruno in the act? How? You could record him working, or at least take pictures of what he does to the cars. Andrew turned pale. Are you crazy? If they catch me doing that, not only do I lose my job, but I could have much worse problems. What kind of problems? Asked David, worried about his brother-in-law. You don't know the owner of Montenegro, Vincent Thompson. He's not someone to mess with. I've heard stories about people who got involved in his business and ended up in trouble. Marcus felt a shiver. The situation was getting more complicated than he had imagined. Andrew, I understand your fear, but think, if someone dies in an accident caused by sabotage, will you be able to live with that? And if I try to help you and something happens to me? My wife is pregnant, man. I can't take that risk. Marcus understood Andrew's position perfectly. He himself had gone through difficult times recently and knew what it was like to have responsibilities that made any risk unacceptable. All right, said Marcus. We won't pressure you, but if you change your mind or if you see something really dangerous, call me. They exchanged phone numbers and said goodbye. On the way home, David was visibly worried. Marcus, maybe we should leave this to the authorities after all. With what evidence? All we have are suspicions. But if this Vincent Thompson is as dangerous as Andrew said, David, do you have children? I do. A 12-year-old boy. Imagine him in a car with sabotaged brakes going down a hill. David stayed silent for the rest of the ride. The next morning, Marcus told Rebecca everything. She listened quietly, her expression growing more and more concerned. Marcus, this is much more serious than I imagined. What do you want to do? I'm going to call a lawyer I know. He'll advise us on how to proceed legally. And in the meantime? In the meantime, we stay alert. If more Montenegro cars arrive here with similar problems, we document everything. The wait lasted only 2 days. On Thursday, 3 Montenegro cars arrived at the Harris dealership's workshop with brake problems. All had been sold the previous week. Marcus meticulously documented everything. Photos of the damaged components, VIN numbers, sales dates, owners' names. It was an undeniable pattern. Rebecca took all the documentation to her lawyer on Friday. He confirmed they had enough evidence for a formal complaint. But he warned us about one thing, said Rebecca when she returned from the meeting. If we file the complaint, we'll become declared enemies of Montenegro. They'll try to destroy us commercially. And if we don't, more people could get into accidents or die. Marcus didn't hesitate. Then we have no choice. Over the weekend, Marcus and Jennifer talked at length about the risks of getting involved in a commercial war with Montenegro. Jen, I need to do this. It's the right thing. I know, and I support you. I'm just worried about our safety. Rebecca said she's going to hire security for the dealership, and we'll be careful. Marcus, you always do the right thing, even when it hurts you. It's one of the things I love most about you. Sometimes I think it would be easier to be a selfish person. It would. But then you wouldn't be the man I married. On Monday, the complaint was filed. On Tuesday, the news leaked to the local press. On Wednesday, Vincent Thompson called Rebecca personally. Marcus was in her office when the phone rang. Rebecca Harris, she answered, putting it on speakerphone. Miss Harris, this is Vincent Thompson from Montenegro Imports. The voice was deep, controlled, but with an implied threat. Mr. Thompson, I heard you've been spreading lies about my company. I'm not spreading lies, I'm reporting facts. Facts? You call those ridiculous accusations facts? I call them documented evidence. There was a long pause on the line. Miss Harris, you're new to the dealership business. Maybe you don't understand how things work around here. How do they work? There's a courtesy among business owners. We don't attack each other publicly. We resolve our disagreements privately. Mr. Thompson, vehicle sabotage isn't a disagreement. It's a crime. Be careful with the words you use, Ms. Harris. Unfounded accusations can lead to defamation lawsuits. My accusations are well-founded. We'll see. But I can guarantee one thing. Those who mess with me regret it. The call ended. Marcus and Rebecca looked at each other. He just threatened us, said Marcus. Yes, he did. But we're not backing down. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, Please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, the retaliations began that very week. First, there were anonymous calls to Harris dealership's customers saying the company was having financial problems. Then they started spreading rumors that Marcus had a criminal record. "This is getting heavy," said David on a Friday after 3 customers cancelled scheduled services. "They're trying to break us economically," said Marcus. "What if they succeed?" "They won't. The truth is on our side." But Marcus was more worried than he let on. The dealership's sales had dropped 30% in 2 weeks. If the trend continued, Rebecca might be forced to close the company. The turnaround came from where Marcus least expected it. Andrew called him on a Monday morning, visibly agitated. "Marcus, you need to come here now." "Why? What happened?" "I can't talk on the phone, but it's about what you were investigating." Marcus immediately went to the location Andrew had indicated, a gas station on the outskirts of town. David's brother-in-law was visibly nervous, chain-smoking. "What's wrong, Andrew?" "Yesterday something happened that changed everything for me." "What thing?" "My boss, Vincent, called all employees to a meeting. He said Harris was trying to destroy our company with lies." "And?" "He said any employee seen talking with people from Harris would be fired on the spot, and that if anyone was passing information to them, the consequences would be much worse than dismissal." Marcus understood why Andrew was so nervous. "Does he suspect you?" "I don't know, but that's not why I came here." "Then what was it?" Andrew threw his cigarette on the ground and stomped on it hard. "After the meeting, I saw Derek working on a car that's being delivered today, a BMW for Dr. Henry Roberts. Do you know him?" Marcus knew. Henry Roberts was a respected cardiologist in the city, father of 3 young children. "I do." "I saw Derek loosening the brake bolts on that car, deliberately, and when he finished, he looked around to see if anyone was watching, like someone who did something wrong." Marcus felt his blood boil. It was no longer just a matter of business competition. It was a matter of life or death. "Andrew, are you absolutely sure of what you saw?" "I am. And more. I heard Derek talking on the phone with someone afterward. He said the doctor was going to have a surprise on the first hard break." Marcus almost lost control. "When is the car being delivered?" "Today at 3 in the afternoon." Marcus looked at his watch. It was 10:15 in the morning. "Andrew, you need to stop this delivery." "How?" "If I say anything, they'll know I was the one who told you." "Then make up some excuse. Say you noticed a technical problem, that you need to review the car." "Marcus, I can't. If they find out..." "Andrew, if you do nothing, Dr. Henry might die today, and probably his children too, because they always ride together in the car." Andrew turned pale. The reality of the situation finally hit him. "What do you want me to do?" "Call there now and make up any excuse to delay the delivery. Say you have to replace a part, that it arrived defective, anything. And then? Then I'll call the police and tell them everything, with you as a witness. They'll kill me, Marcus. They won't. The police will protect you. And when this whole story comes out in the media, Vincent and Derek will have much bigger problems to worry about." Andrew thought for a few minutes, clearly wrestling with fear. "Okay, I'll call." The call was tense. Andrew made up a story about a part that had arrived defective and needed to be replaced before delivery. On the other end of the line, Marcus could hear angry shouts, but Andrew stuck to his version. "Done," he said after hanging up. "The delivery has been postponed until tomorrow." "Perfect. Now let's call the police." The report was made immediately. Marcus told the whole story to the detective, presented the evidence he had collected, and named Andrew as a key witness. "We'll send a team to Montenegro now," said the detective. "If there's really sabotage, we'll catch them in the act." The operation was carried out 2 hours later. Marcus, Rebecca, and Andrew monitored everything from a room at the police station, listening through the police radio. "We found evidence of tampering in Dr. Henry's BMW," reported an officer. "The brakes were deliberately damaged." "And the suspect?" "Derek Harris was caught in the act. He was trying to destroy tools that proved the sabotage." "And the owner of Montenegro?" "Vincent Thompson has been detained for questioning. We're investigating his involvement." Marcus felt a huge relief. Finally, the truth had prevailed. "Andrew," he said, "you were very brave. I just did what was right, but I'm still afraid of what might happen to me. The police will protect you, and when this whole story is cleared up, you'll be able to work anywhere in the city." Indeed, the story made the headlines of the local newspapers. "Sabotage scheme at dealership uncovered. Brave mechanic reports crimes that could have caused deaths. Businessman arrested for putting lives at risk. Montenegro's reputation was completely destroyed. Vincent Thompson was indicted for forming a criminal organization and attempted murder. Derek confessed everything in exchange for a reduced sentence, revealing that he had sabotaged more than 20 cars in the last 6 months. Rebecca received dozens of calls from customers apologizing for their suspicions and praising her courage in exposing the truth. Harris dealership's sales skyrocketed, and she had to hire more employees. "Marcus," she said one Thursday afternoon, "do you realize what happened here?" "What?" "That day you stopped to help me on the road changed many more lives than you can imagine." "How so?" "If you hadn't helped me, we would never have met. I would never have hired you. You would never have been here to uncover Montenegro's scheme. How many people could have died in accidents caused by sabotage?" Marcus had never thought of it that way. His simple decision to help a stranger had created a chain of events that saved lives. "Sometimes things connect in ways we don't expect," he said. "More than that, sometimes doing the right thing creates waves of good that go far beyond what we can see." Jennifer gave birth to a girl in January, at the height of the Riverside summer. Marcus was present at the birth, holding his wife's hand as she brought Hope into the world, the name they had chosen for their baby. "Hope Thompson," said Marcus, holding his daughter for the first time. "What a perfect name." "Why?" asked Jennifer, exhausted but happy. "Because that's what you gave me during all these difficult months, hope that everything would work out." Rebecca visited the maternity ward the next day, bringing flowers and a special gift. A savings account opened in Hope's name, with enough money to pay for her college education. "Rebecca, this is too much," said Jennifer. "It's the least I can do. Marcus saved my business and probably many lives. I want his daughter to have every opportunity possible." Marcus was moved. In less than a year, he had lost everything and found much more than he had ever dreamed. A few months later, an unexpected situation tested Marcus's character once again. Gerald appeared at Harris dealership one March morning, visibly ashamed and desperate. "Marcus, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Gerald. What's going on?" "I lost the shop. I had to close it." "I'm sorry. What happened?" "After the truth about what I did to you spread, I lost several customers. Howard withdrew all financial support. I couldn't sustain the business anymore." Marcus felt a mix of satisfaction and pity. Gerald was paying for his own choices, but seeing him desperate didn't bring the joy Marcus had imagined. "What about Brandon?" "He went back to New York, got a job at a chain of shops there. At least he got out of this mess I created." "What do you want from me, Gerald?" "A job. I know it sounds absurd after everything I did, but I have nowhere else to go." Marcus was shocked by the request. The man who had destroyed his life was asking to work for him. "Gerald, do you understand the situation? You lied about me, spread rumors, made me go through the worst weeks of my life." "I understand, and I deeply regret it. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm desperate." Marcus thought of Jennifer, of Hope, of how life had changed for the better. He also thought about how hatred and the desire for revenge were feelings that corroded those who nurtured them. "I'll talk to Rebecca," he finally said. "Marcus, would you really do that?" "I'll talk. I promise nothing more than that." The conversation with Rebecca was long and difficult. She was visibly upset about the possibility of hiring Gerald. "Marcus, the man tried to destroy your life. Why do you want to help him?" "Because I have a daughter now. I want her to grow up seeing that it's possible to forgive, that it's possible to give second chances." "What if he causes trouble here?" "Then we fire him." "But at least we will have tried." Rebecca thought for a few days before giving her answer. All right, but he starts as a regular employee, basic salary, 6-month probation period, and you will be responsible for supervising him. Gerald started working at Harris dealership on a Monday in April. The first day was extremely awkward for everyone. The other mechanics knew the story and treated Gerald with polite coldness. "Marcus," David said at the end of the first day, "are you sure about what you're doing?" "No, but sometimes you have to take a risk to do what's right." The first few months were difficult. Gerald worked in silence, clearly humiliated by his situation. Marcus treated him with professionalism, without hostility, but also without familiarity. The change began when a customer brought in a complex problem that neither Marcus nor David could solve. Gerald, who had been observing the work silently, asked permission to make a suggestion. "Excuse me," he said timidly, "but I think I know what the problem is." Marcus hesitated but decided to listen. "Go ahead." Gerald explained his theory and suggested a solution that none of them had considered. The idea was brilliant and worked perfectly. "How did you know that?" David asked, impressed. "I've seen this problem before. It's rare, but it happens in cars over 10 years old that are driven a lot on highways." Marcus realized that despite all his character flaws, Gerald truly understood mechanics. Maybe he could be a valuable addition to the team if he could control his destructive nature. "Gerald," Marcus said after the customer left, "that was a good observation. Thank you." "You're welcome. It's the least I can do to try to make up for, you know." "Gerald, the past is the past. What matters now is how you behave from here on out." "Marcus, can I ask you a question?" "Go ahead." "Why did you give me this chance?" "After everything I did," Marcus thought before answering, "because I believe people can change, and because my life got much better after I stopped carrying anger." "Did you really forgive me?" "Gerald, forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or pretending nothing happened. It means choosing not to let anger control my life. I don't know if I could do the same in your place." "Maybe you never needed to learn." "I learned because it was the only way to move forward." Over time, Gerald integrated better with the team. His experience and technical knowledge were truly valuable, and his humble attitude completely contrasted with the arrogance he had shown in the past. One day, David commented to Marcus, "You know, Gerald has changed a lot." "How so?" "He never tries to stand out, never challenges your orders, always offers help when someone is struggling. It's like he's a different person. Perhaps humility has taught him things that arrogance never could." "Do you think he's really changed?" "I think circumstances forced him to see things about himself that he preferred to ignore, and that could be the start of real change." Marcus was right. Gerald had spent months reflecting on his choices and their consequences. Losing everything because of envy and pride had been a brutal but necessary lesson. At the end of the year, Marcus was promoted to general manager of Harris. Rebecca had decided to expand the business and needed someone reliable to oversee all operations. "Marcus, in 2 years you've completely transformed this company," she said during the promotion meeting. "We had a good team. We had a good leader, someone who understands that business is done by people, and people need to be treated with dignity." "What do you mean?" "The way you handled David, earning his respect instead of just imposing authority. The way you gave Gerald a chance, even after everything he did. The way you put customer safety above profits in the Montenegro situation." Marcus realized that his life philosophy had influenced not only his career, but the entire company culture. "Rebecca, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Why did you really hire me? And don't tell me it was just out of gratitude." Rebecca smiled as if she had been waiting for that question for a long time. "Marcus, do you want the honest answer?" "I do. When we met on the road, I wasn't going to the hospital because of my mother." Marcus was confused. "What do you mean?" "My mother had passed away 2 days earlier. I was returning from the funeral." "Then, why did you say?" "Because I was testing you." Marcus felt as if the world had stopped. Everything he believed about that day was wrong. "Testing how?" "Marcus, I had spent 2 years looking for a partner to expand my company, someone I could trust completely. All the candidates I interviewed were competent, but something was missing. What? Genuine character. Honesty that wasn't just business strategy. Marcus still couldn't fully process what he was hearing. So you pretended you needed to get to the hospital? I was desperate, but not for the reason I said. I was desperate to find someone I could trust, and when you stopped to help me, when you worked 3 hours for free, when you refused payment, I knew I had found it. Rebecca, this changes everything about that day. Changes it. Why? You did exactly the same thing. The only difference is that my need was professional, not personal. Marcus thought about it. She was right. He had helped because it was his nature to help, not because he knew all the details of the situation. Don't you feel bad for having lied? I do. That's why I'm telling the truth now. You deserve to know that your kindness wasn't taken advantage of by someone in real despair, but recognized by someone who was looking for exactly that quality. What if I had refused to help? Then I would know I still hadn't found the right person. Marcus was silent for a few minutes, reorganizing his understanding of the last 2 years. Rebecca, this explains so many things. Why you trusted me so much, why you gave me so much autonomy. Because I saw who you really are when you thought no one was watching your motivations. And now, after knowing the truth, does this change anything? For me, no. And for you? Marcus thought about his journey over the last 2 years. The job loss that led him to despair, but also to growth. The humiliation that taught him genuine humility. The anger he had to transform into forgiveness. The fear he had to convert into courage. No, he finally said. It changes nothing. I still made the same choices for the same reasons. So are we partners? Asked Rebecca, extending her hand. We are partners, replied Marcus, shaking her hand. The partnership was formalized at the end of December. Marcus and Jennifer celebrated Christmas in their new home, a 2-story house in the most beautiful neighborhood of Riverside, with a big backyard for Hope to play in when she grew up. Marcus, said Jennifer, as they decorated the Christmas tree, do you remember what our life was like last Christmas? How could I forget? No money, no job, you pregnant and worried. And look where we are now. It's almost unbelievable. You know what amazes me the most? What? That it all started with you doing exactly what you've always done, helping someone in need. Even if that need was different from what I thought, that doesn't matter. What matters is that you're a good person, and good people attract good things. Marcus looked at his wife, at their daughter sleeping in her arms, at the comfortable home they now lived in. He thought about the job he loved, the team he respected, the prosperous future opening up before them. Jen, can I tell you a secret? Of course. Sometimes I'm still afraid all this will disappear, that it's too good to last. Marcus, you didn't win this in a lottery. You earned it through hard work, honesty, and persistence. Those things don't disappear. And what if I make a wrong decision? Then you learn from the mistake and move forward, like you always have. Marcus hugged his family and felt a deep peace. He finally understood that his tendency to help others wasn't a weakness that harmed him, but his greatest strength. At the beginning of the following year, Marcus made a decision that would further change his life and that of many others. During a meeting with Rebecca, he proposed creating a training program for unemployed mechanics. The idea is to give opportunities to people in the same situation I was in, he explained. How would it work? Free automotive mechanics courses, especially for imported vehicles. The best students would get internships at our company. Marcus, that would cost a fortune. It would. But think about the return. We'd have a constant source of well-trained employees grateful for the opportunity, and we'd be doing something good for the community. Rebecca thought about the proposal for a few days. You know what? Let's do it. But with one condition. What? You'll be the program coordinator, and we'll call it the Marcus Thompson Professional Training Institute. Marcus was moved by the tribute, but insisted on changing the name to the Hope Institute, referring to his daughter and what the program would represent for the students. The institute opened 6 months later, in a ceremony that brought together local authorities, business people, and the first class of 20 students. Among them was Andrew, who had lost his job at Montenegro after the company closed. "Marcus," said Andrew during the ceremony, "do you remember when we first met?" "I do." "You were terrified, and with good reason. Who would have thought that 2 years later I'd be here learning a new trade thanks to you?" "Andrew, you were brave when you needed to be. You deserved this opportunity." "It's not just about the opportunity. It's about the example. You taught me that doing the right thing is worth it, even when it's risky." The institute became a huge success. In 2 years, it graduated over 100 mechanics, most of whom quickly found jobs. Harris dealership's reputation grew even more, attracting customers who wanted to support a socially responsible company. Marcus began to be invited to speak at schools and businesses, sharing his story and encouraging people to act with honesty even in the face of difficulties. "The most important lesson I learned," he would say in his speeches, "is that doing the right thing isn't a strategy for success. It's a way of living that makes success more meaningful when it comes." One of these talks changed the life of an 18-year-old named Tyler, who had dropped out of school and was involved in petty theft. "Professor Marcus," Tyler said after the lecture, "do you think a person can really change?" "Tyler, I worked with a man who tried to ruin my life. Today, he's one of the most dedicated employees at our company. If he can change, anyone can." "But how do I make people believe I've changed?" "You don't do anything to make people believe. You truly change and let your actions speak for you." Tyler enrolled in the Hope Institute and became one of the top students in his class. Today, he works at Harris and is finishing high school in the evening. "Tyler reminded me of myself a few years ago," Marcus commented to Rebecca one day. "How so?" "Someone lost, needing an opportunity, and especially someone who believed in him." "Marcus, do you realize you're creating a chain of good?" "What do you mean?" "Every person you help will help others." Tyler already brought 2 friends to the institute. Andrew convinced his brother-in-law to sign up for the next course. Marcus had never thought of it that way, but Rebecca was right. His decision to stop and help a stranger had created waves of change that spread far beyond what he could see. On the 3rd anniversary of the Hope Institute, Marcus gave a speech that moved everyone present. "When I lost my job 4 years ago," he began, "I thought my life was over. I didn't imagine that terrible moment was preparing me for something much bigger." The audience listened in respectful silence. "I learned that our worst experiences can become our greatest strength if we let them teach us instead of destroy us." Marcus looked at Jennifer and Hope, now 3 years old, sitting in the front row. "I learned that doing the right thing doesn't always bring immediate rewards, but it always brings peace of mind. And that peace is worth more than any success achieved dishonestly." He paused, looking at the attentive faces before him. "But above all, I learned that kindness isn't a sign of weakness. It's the most powerful force there is to change the world." The auditorium erupted in applause. Marcus saw tears in the eyes of many people in the audience, especially the former students who had rebuilt their lives through the institute. After the ceremony, Gerald approached Marcus. "Marcus, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Gerald. I wanted to thank you, not just for the job, but for the lesson." "What lesson?" "That it's possible to start over. That past mistakes don't have to define the future." "Gerald, you really have changed. It's visible. I changed because I found people who believed I could change, especially you. And what are you going to do now?" "I want to help at the institute. Offer my time on weekends to teach the students. It's my way of giving back." Marcus smiled. Gerald's transformation was living proof that forgiving and giving second chances could truly change lives. "Gerald, it would be great to have your help. The students will benefit a lot from your experience." "Marcus, can I ask you one last question?" "Go ahead." "If you could go back in time, would you change anything about that day that made me late for the meeting?" Marcus thought about the question. That day had cost him his job, caused weeks of suffering, almost destroyed his family, but it had also led to everything that happened afterward. I wouldn't change a thing, he said finally, because it was on that day that I discovered who I really am. End of story. And you, dear listener, what did you think of this story of overcoming and transformation? Do you believe Marcus made the right decisions by helping others, even when it hurt him? Leave your opinion in the comments and tell us which lessons from this story touched your heart the most. If this story moved you, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring narratives like this one.